So I got the job. I started off working in the field. Um, I'm working as safety, and I am having these. I've been there for like four years, and I'm having like these weird things happening. Um, I'm also I'm I'm the safety manager. There's a director of safety, and then there's me. Director of safety is in the office 98% of the time. And then there's me, who is out in the field all the time. And so I'm the one that's meeting with plant managers and meeting with the people and meeting with the superintendents and meeting with the safety people at plants and doing all of that stuff. And um I love my job. I absolutely love my job. But I've got this weird stuff going on. Just weird. Just bizarre. Just so I go to the doctor. It's like one of my appointments was for like nausea. Um for as long as I could remember, I had woken up with nausea in the mornings. Like literally as long as I could remember. But it would last like 15 minutes or 20 minutes and then it would go away. But now, and then it had gone up to like an hour. So by the time I got to work, it would be gone. But now at that point, it was lasting like 6 hours, 8 hours, or all day. So I went to the doctor and, they did all the tests and everything. Everything came back fine. So he gave me promethazine or Finnegan. Um, and, that worked just fine. And then every once in a while, I would just like get really anxious for no reason whatsoever. Oh, no reason. So he started me on like a low dose of Lexapro, like 10 milligrams of Lexapro, and that fixed that. And then um what else was it? Oh, insomnia. Some nights I would not be able to go to sleep at all, and I was walking like 26,000, 30,000 steps a day in steel toe boots, up and down steps. Uh, I would be in the car. I was responsible for 150 people at plants that spread all the way from Fernandina Beach, Florida to Charleston, South Carolina. And I could be in the car and get a phone, or be at one plant and get a phone call from a supervisor or a mill manager saying, we have this going on for this job, and I had to know every person that was supposed to be on that job, what their capabilities were, be able to picture the area in my head, know every aspect of the job, know what they were supposed to be doing, know the equipment they were supposed to be using on it, all of the things around the job, any other contractors working in the area for 35 or more different plants. And then, plants are huge, so a whole bunch of areas all the time. All the time. Ask Shockin. There are times that our phone or my phone would ring at 1 o'clock in the morning with phone calls. And I would, have to answer questions and handle things. So Anyway, I found that I was having to take down notes for the first time ever, where for all of these other years, I had been able to keep track of first, like every appointment that we had within our own family and shopping lists and all of this other stuff in my head. I was having to, like, instead of just have a conversation on my Bluetooth, I would have to pull off, and it was in this same little space of time. I would have to pull off the road and look at my notes real fast to be able to answer certain questions. And then, I was also teaching OSHA classes on the weekend, and I had never had to open the book. But I found that 2 weeks in a row when I was teaching the class that I had to, like, read word for word from the book because I could not think. And it was an OSHA 10 class. I mean, it wasn't complicated. It's basic stuff, like proper use of hand tools. Like, you don't use a screwdriver as a hammer, and fire extinguisher used. And I mean, simple stuff. But I couldn't think. Oh, and the insomnia. Some nights I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. Some nights I would sleep for literally 1 hour, exactly 1 hour, and then I would wake up and be wide awake the rest of the night. And it wasn't because I didn't feel like I was thinking about something or stressed. It was just I would fall into bed like exhausted, and then would fall right asleep, and then 30 minutes or 60 minutes would go by, and my body would go, okay, you're done. You've had enough sleep. Wake up. And I did not have the kind of job that I could call in. I couldn't call and say, I won't be in tomorrow, because there wasn't anybody to do my job. Then I was getting vertigo randomly, like just randomly, where in the past I would be 150, 250 feet up walking in a cable tray, which is a tray with cables in it, literally. Maybe a foot wide, or maybe a foot and a half wide, or maybe 6 feet wide, but just that's a tray that has wires in them. And I would be walking in those, and then suddenly I would be climbing a 6-foot ladder and would get 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder and would get hit with a dizzy spell. And it was I'd have to climb back down the ladder, because it was not like getting hit with a dizzy spell. It was like my whole body got turned sideways, and it was incapacitating. And trying to talk to people, I was having difficulty coming up with the right words, and my face was going numb on the left side, and just all of these weird things. So the doctor's spending all of this time trying to figure out what's wrong, because every test that I'm getting is coming up fine. But he also sees that there's something going on, because as he's doing like the reflexes, checking for reflexes on my left side, or on, my whole body, but on the left side, they are greatly diminished. So there's something going on. And then one day I'm in the office and he all of a sudden says, "I think I know what's wrong with you. What other symptoms do you have that you haven't told me about?" And I said, "I've told you, everything, excuse me, except for, I've got numbness and tingling in my left leg and foot and arm and foot, but that's from the accident my mom and I were in, and it's from the degenerative disc disease. That's all it is." And he said, "No, it's not. That's not what it is." He said, "Has anybody in your family ever been in the hospital for a possible stroke, but they didn't find a stroke?" And I said, "Yeah, that's happened to my mom twice." Why? I said, "In both times, I'm the one that sent her to the hospital." And he said, "I thought so. I have to get you to the neurologist right now. I think you have," and I swear this is what I heard him say, "hemahama." I had no idea what he was talking about. So he came back in the room a few minutes ago and said, or a few minutes later, and said, "The neurologist can see you right now. Go to Savannah." So I went to the neurologist and had no clue what was going on. And the neurologist told me, "I agree with your doctor. You have hemiplegic migraines." And I said, "This does not make sense to me because when this stuff is going on, I don't get a migraine. I've had common migraines since I was 15 years old, and I still get common migraines, but I do not get any kind of a headache with these at all, with this other stuff at all." And he said, "I don't know that much about them, but it is not unusual to have these without having a head without having head pain." I don't know if that came out right, but it's not unusual to have a hemiplegic migraine episode and not have a headache or whatever. I hope that I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't know. So he told me to go back to my doctor, or no, he did not. I got back in my car and was getting ready to leave when my phone rang, and it was my doctor again, and he said, "Come back to the office." And at this point, they're getting ready to close for the day. And I had gone to my doctor, like taken a later lunch and had gone to my doctor for lunch break kind of thing. And I went back to my doctor and he said, "You can't go back to work. You're done. You're never going to work again, I don't think." And is explaining this stuff to me and says, there's varying degrees of all of this stuff, but with the way that it has been growing and with the past history that I have of other stuff, he thinks that there's familial hemiplegic migraines and then there's sporadic hemiplegic migraines. With my mom having the history that she does, he thought that I had familial hemiplegic migraines, and where she had been diagnosed by Johns Hopkins because they could not figure out what was going on with mom, and she had been diagnosed a couple years earlier with complex migraine with aura of unknown name. And that was, Johns Hopkins headache clinic. that diagnosed her. And that was after she had been in the hospital the first time for the stroke, but that was not brought up because who knew that that was connected at all? So, yeah, I mean, we never would have thought that. So, the next thing that we tried to do was find a neurologist. And I think that we have like 70, 75 neurologists ish in our area. And we were not able to find any neurologists that had treated hemiplegic migraines at that point. We tried 3, I think maybe my husband remembers more. I think we tried 3 neurologists that had um, um, had treated um, like complex and complicated migraines, which I think they're the same thing now. But none of them had any experience with hemiplegic migraines. And the problem is, hemiplegic migraines kind of fall in a class separately from a lot of them because there are a few types of migraines that are very dangerous. And this is one of them. It's one of NIH calls it one of the rare migraines. It's like 0.003% of the U.S. population has it, and it can cause death, and I will explain how that can happen. Although it's unlikely, it can happen. But it's the way that it affects you. And people are different. Some people don't get much from it. Like my mom is very sick with it, but she still has an active life, relatively speaking. I look at her as having an active life. She looks at it as not having an active life, but she still is able to go to the store. Back to the neurologist. So anyway, those 3 neurologists, we were not able to get help. So that was April when I got diagnosed. In July, we had a doctor that had finished her her internship and everything and relocated from another place to here, and she had treated or finished her residency, and she had treated hemiplegic migraines. And that was who I started seeing. Now we have, I think, a couple of doctors here that have treated hemiplegic migraines, but my insurance company actually there's a program called Best Doctors where they have these experts from like across the country review your file, your medical history. They go way far back into your medical history and get stuff, and like it gets reviewed by big time medical experts, and then they start trying to find you a doctor, and they start off like really close, within 10 miles, 20 miles, and then 50 miles and so forth. Well, they then they like kind of interview the doctors on the phone, talk to them, and they decided that the only people that I could see were 2 doctors at Mayo in Jacksonville, which is about 2 hours away from us. So they said that there was not any doctors here that were qualified to see me. But I'm going to leave that for right here for right now, and we will do a part 3.